get through this.
Easy for listening. I wasn't able to do it. Easy to dance. I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Not me. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to Have Your Say one-on-one shadow boxing. Today at WTV Studios we got my guest James White, Bishop James White.
Correct.
Who is Bishop of the relatively new church, which is Christian, but liberal Christian church. Tell us about the liberal Christian church. Why we do need a new church when we got lots of churches and Christianity is it's almost 2,000 years old or a little bit more. So why do we need a new church inside the church?
We really don't need a new church. It is because the old church lost its way in its teachings for the people. They sought to control and direct them through fear and laws which did not give them the freedom that they justly deserve.
What I heard about that was designed Christianity to keep people in fears and don't give them much of freedom, just control, which is not true, of course. Christianity was not designed for that.
No, it was never designed
but
for
why
that.
are they still teaching it and why are they living life
That's
if
one
Christianity is designed for that control?
One of the things you'd have to do is to ask them. Our approach is to give you the freedom for your search and for your knowledge so that you can grow and develop at your own pace and not be placed in a box-like structure that is going to hamper your spiritual growth over a period of time.
But still, at the top of the box, or from the box, is sometimes, the clown jumps up when you open the box. Yeah. However,
the jack in the box.
The jack
yes.
in the box. But in this case, the jack in the box, in your liberal Christian religion and on the Christian religion, the same Christ.
If we like to use that particular analogy, right, then Jack in the Box is the Christ coming out, yes, and his instructions to us were very simple, very simple. One was love, and his message to everybody was, I've come to set you free. I have not come to
imprison you
in something. I have come to set you free. Now, if he is going to set us free, then we've got to look at how is that freedom for us. He didn't say I was going to take away slaves. He didn't say I was going to take away your boss. He didn't say I was going to take away the monetary dictates of what it is. But in order for you to be free, people, what you have to have is the freedom of your mind to be able to explore and develop. These are the chains that he broke.
But this one is so common sense, even looks like for me is naive, because if you got the freedom of thought in your head, then you can be a slave, you can be the President of the United States, right. You can be Absolutely. In prison, you can be my wife, and you got the same freedom. So right. If we all got the same freedom, why couldn't we recognize that the only thing what we need in life is love? But the hippies, they say the hippies realized that. So what's happened with the hippies?
Well, of course, I lived through the hippie age, yes. Quite an interesting period of time. I don't necessarily say I was part of it, but let me put it this way. It was certainly an interesting time where excesses in all directions were given license. That's not liberty. That's not freedom. Liberty and from the liberal point of the church is that you are in a position to be able to make a discerning judgment based on your knowledge and based on your experience. Now, of course, the hippies would turn around and say, well, we had a great time and, hey, I've experienced all sorts of wonderful things, And yes, it does give them the ability to be able to discriminate at a later point in their lives. So perhaps there was a role for the hippie generation.
But on that
Whether
note,
we have
yeah,
learnt it or not is another thing.
but on that note, if the hippies experience that sort of freedom and all things to be free and tried, then the hippies, like your age, and even my age maybe, the ones who screwed up the whole world and made the world as it is today. So they are the ones who, after experiencing that so-called freedom, which you're questioning was a freedom or not, however, if they went through all this experience, why are they just stopped and lined up for the corporates and serving them and served them and got this huge superannuations and retired, and the kids and the grandkids' life is screwed up big times by the hippie generation?
One of the primary objectives of people, when you get through the experimentation period, realization comes upon you that, hello, this is the real world. I'm going to have to eat. I'm going to have to get clothes. I'm going to have shelter. And these are the items that suddenly become very much paramount in their minds. This is where our little ego suddenly gets pumped up over a period of time. And because you, Tibor, own a Mercedes-Benz, I think, well, I'm as good as Tibor, I should own a Mercedes-Benz, therefore I'll get a Mercedes-Benz. The fact that I dock myself up to the eyeballs in debt is an exercise in stupidity, but it does fuel the economy. It does fuel the 1% that we talked about earlier on. Only because my ego has got in the way. If we can be content with that which we have now, today, we wouldn't have the problems that we have around the world.
So how the problems been engineered then? By the politician, by the money people, the 1% who controls the world, or what? Because politicians now sort of, some politicians anyway around the world start to wake up a little bit. Just for the American election campaign, you got two different end of the spectrum, and Senator Bernie, and he said, we're here to stop the 1% ruling the American life. Is that a wishful thinking, or he got a hotline connection with God?
No, I think it's wishful thinking. You see, the main runner at the present time is doing that which all politicians do. And he's playing on the fears, the concerns, and the worries of the people. He's not giving any solutions. He's just stating the obvious. And he is stating the obvious in fairly broad terms. And as a consequence of that, those people who haven't put 2 and 2 together to get 4 think, he's great, I'm going to do that. I'm going to vote for him because he's making sense, because he's addressing the way I feel, right? Not
Which
the way
is true.
Which
they
is true.
feel.
That's the way I feel.
So why the other end of the spectrum, Hillary Clinton, is not standing up and saying something similar what Bernie say?
She probably isn't, but in a different way, in a much more conservative way. But she's saying nonetheless pretty well much what is being said all the way around, because you won't get the votes otherwise. And have in mind that in America, they are all voluntary voting. So I, as a politician, have to get you out of your chair, down to the ballot box, in order for you to vote for me.
So that's how democracy works in the United States of America, the most democratic country where voting is not even compulsory to participate in your own life, to decide. That's good, I like it. And that is good in America. I know they exist on the notes because they say we trust in God.
There is the Evangelical Bell, which is in, of course, obviously the south of the United States. And have in mind that America was established on the basis of religion. In other words, the Puritans came over from England. They were tossed
out of England.
Yeah. Tossed out of England, yeah, absolutely. So they went to America. And then, of course, obviously, the evangelicals grew up over a period of time where you had these horseback riding, Bible bashing, thumping characters who dealt with the literal truth, taking the Bible as literal truth and beating people over the head with it. Well, it takes days to get it in and takes months to get it out. And then the same sort of thing is happening here. You scratch the Americans and it's still there.
So that's how this works there. So, James,
Yes.
How do you attract people into your church?
With great difficulty, because one of the problems that we do have is the fact that because I ask you to take responsibility, total responsibility for your actions, a lot of people don't want that. They want to be guided and protected and given the pathway. Sorry, that's not what it's all about, in our opinion. And that is one of the reasons why it's very difficult for us to be able to go out and stand on the corner and beat the drum and say, come and join us, we'll solve your problems, we will take you to heaven, we will do all of those things. No, we don't. And I don't propose to start doing it because there's enough out there, if you wanted to hear it, where if you come and follow us, you'll be wealthy. If you come and follow us, you'll be saved. If you come and follow us, you won't have to go to purgatory or hell. Now, come on, give me a break. That's all going to happen, whether or not, and it's all predicated on your individual actions. And our thought is, it's about time you took responsibility. But what we do offer, as a consequence of that, is it gives you the freedom to search, the freedom to take that spiritual step forward, the freedom to examine that which is internally within you that is never looked at. And as a consequence, you can grow spiritually within yourself and then tend to experience the numinous when you indulge in the practices of mantras, meditation, and even attending the Eucharist.
On that note, James, we have to go for a short break, but please stay with us because after the break we're coming back with more discussion and discovery of the liberal Catholic Church. Hello and welcome back to One-on-One Shadow Boxing, Have Your Say. Today my guest is James White, Bishop James White of the Liberal Catholic Church.
Absolutely correct.
James, I went through, when I done a little bit of my homework, of your, the summary of the doctrines of your church. And I find a few interesting things in it.
Oh, right.
And I got a few questions, not too many of them, but some questions.
As long as they're easy, T-Ball.
I'm always easy. I've never got any hard questions for anyone in my program. So one is very important, the view of mankind and the purpose of man's life.
The composition of man himself, and when I use the word man, I mean both genders. We've got to be very particular about that.
And what's happening in between genders and
the
undecided ones.
And
you know.
Those that are having difficulties, even those that are having difficulties, they are also a part of humankind.
Okay.
And as a consequence, we are made up as an individual of body, soul, and spirit. We are placed here to grow and develop, And you've heard, of course, the story of the prodigal son, who leaves his father's house and goes out and experiences the world, and then suddenly has a revelation and then comes back.
So
and
that's the
is
hippie.
Well, yes, he even as a hippie, yes, by all means, although I do understand that he was actually finished up in a pigsty. So, but be that as it may, the journey he then makes is to
Back
come
home,
back
yeah.
to his father. And this is really the journey that mankind is making on a spiritual journey. We have come from God. We are immersed in this world, and we are returning to our Creator in time. As a consequence of that, there is such a thing as a divine plan. Now, the divine plan, if you can determine what that is, I would be very interested in having your copy of that book, but unfortunately it's not been published.
Some say that book is already been published because we have discovered the genes and the structure of the genes, and that's somehow distinguish, determine, and also makes us similar. So make everyone a sort of mankind or part of the whole world of mankind.
I hear where you're coming from, and genetics, of course, obviously is a subject matter all of its own, and I'm not an expert in that area, of course. But my understanding is
Yes.
is that even though we do have this string, this string of genetics within each cell within our body, which gives it the meaning and purpose for its existence, this is just a part of the Creator God's process. The plan itself is much grander than a piece of genetic string.
So what is the plan then? Plan by God, because this is the purpose of man's life. I think if the plan was made up by God, that should carry the purpose of life. And do we know the purpose of life?
One of the fundamental questions that mankind has searched for the last 10,000 years. I wish I knew the answer to that. The purpose of life, I think that we can accept readily, is that we are in a process of change. We are in a process of development and growth.
Are we changing for better or worse?
That depends entirely on us. Don't forget that the church, and indeed all of us acknowledge, I think, that we have the gift of free will. And that free will determines for us our actions. God has not come along and said, that's it. You can't move out of that. What He's come along and says, these are the parameters. Work within it, and you have the free will to take the direction that you wish. But mind you, He said, and I quote, as you sow, so shall you reap.
So where is the free will what God give us? If God give us the free will, which I believe should be given to us, how can a Colin Barnett, who is no one, but barely no one compared with God, sorry Colin, but you are no one compared with God, however we paying you, we're not paying God, and you makes laws against us. So where is the free will? Because Colin Barnett definitely got a free will. So where is God?
The God is there, and He will.
I'm happy to hear that. That's
He hasn't gone away. He hasn't run away, and He's not hiding behind the bush somewhere. No, He is very definitely there. What is happening, of course, and this is the danger of what society is about, is that there are minorities within society that need direction. And unfortunately, the Parliament, in its wisdom, decides that this or that is going to be the case, and they are aiming it at the minority. We have, in our own ways, you, me, and the people here, and the people out there, have the ability to be able to control ourselves and our own environment. If we do that, and we do it well, then we will not have the Colin Barnetts of this world, God bless him, making the rules that are going to dictate to us. We need to be able to take that responsibility ourselves. We need to be able to give that direction not only to ourselves but to those around us. If we can do that, then we will solve pretty well most of the problems. But we have to have a forum where we do this, and a forum for discussion. For instance, in my instance, it's a liberal Catholic church, where we have discussion groups that can explore these avenues of what to do in these sort of circumstances.
What I really like in your church and the philosophy of your church, just a personal like or dislike, but this is a like, that you and your church really believes in reincarnation, which is going a little bit further back in history than the Christian. Is it part of the God's decision to fabricate some real, way to meaning of life?
To the meaning of life, yes, it does have a material effect on where you are today and who you are today and what you are today. You are the sum total of all your previous lives, not so much as far as precise knowledge as your inherent attitude towards good and bad and the rest of society and how you view things. So yes, reincarnation serves a purpose. We don't say that it is an absolute fact because we don't know.
No one comes back to tell the story.
No, nobody has arrived back, and I keep asking people to sort of come and knock on my door, but they haven't done so as yet. So it is, as you say, a philosophy which we find is comforting when you see the aberrations within society today. You turn around and say, well, okay, and then the law comes along and says, all right, well then this is not quite as bad as everything else, so you're only going to have 6 months in prison. Yeah, really? 6 months in prison? Is that enough? No, it's not enough. So there's got to be a balance somewhere. And I hark back to my earlier statement.
Yes.
As you sow, so shall you reap. If you do something wrong, I, as a clergyman, can listen to what you have done. I can turn around and give you the sacrament of penance, and you're forgiven for your sins. But I cannot take away the consequences of your action. You have to suffer that consequence. You have to go. Even everybody else has to do that. So that it's a very simple thing. If you get your finger and you put it on the stove and it's red hot, you're going to get burned.
That's for sure.
I mean, there's not the slightest shadow of a doubt about that.
And you think we have to be reborn to not put the fingers onto the stove, or we're not going to put the fingers on the stove after one finger is burned?
We probably do that in about 3 or 4 lifetimes before we wake up and say, I think that might be hot. Now, of course, there are things that are inherent within us that we bring with us from previous lives, in my opinion.
The last question to finish off this interview. James, I observed that your church also welcomes everyone into the church, like a multi-faith church.
Yes.
Where is that coming from, and how does it work?
We welcome all people because we feel that all people have God within them. Therefore, when I look at you, I shouldn't be looking at Tibor as an outward form, but I should be looking to you as being part of me, being part of God. And that aspect, it doesn't matter what your makeup is. Hebrew, Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, doesn't make any difference. God loves you because he resides in you. And as he resides in you, it is my job to recognize that God within you, irrespective of your predilections and assortments. Our view is that other religions are valid paths to God. But you have to go with that religion. If you're a Hindu, I expect you to be a good Hindu. I expect you to live by Hindus' highest ideals. I will accept you as a Hindu. You can come into my church. I will get you to talk about it. That's not a problem. Because the God that we are addressing is the same God.
On that happy note, James, I have to say thank you. And please, next week, same time, same program, same channel. Have your say. Shadowboxing.
Right, you are.
Not me, that's my fear.